But hello, everybody. We're so glad that you could join us today. This is our first tech talk that we are producing in the Liquibase community. So we hope to continue doing these tech talks. And as always, we welcome feedback and ideas for tech talks. So if you do have ideas, please let us know. We'll have a slide at the end of how you can connect with us, but you can always post in chat. And we'll go ahead and go to the next slide where we talk through a little bit of housekeeping items during the session. So like I said, the meeting is recorded. We will be sharing it out. We'll post it on YouTube. So if you do have to drop, no problem. We'll send it out to you. We do ask that you please mute your microphone for now. We will have questions at the end. So feel free, if you have questions in the meantime, though, post them in the chat and we'll get to them. And at that time, you can also speak to your questions as well. You don't have to stay silent, but I just thought I would mention that as well. For now, if you can just be muted, that will be great, just to make the session go more smoothly. That way everyone can hear. But I will let Mario take it away. I wanted to briefly introduce him. So I think I've met with some of y'all here, but I'm part of the Liquibase community team. I usually am hosting our community roundtables, and y'all are probably familiar with Mario because he usually joins our roundtables if you've been to them before. But Mario is one of our product managers at Liquibase, and so he will be giving our first tech talk today, and I'm excited to introduce him to you. Hello, Mario, welcome.
Hello, Caroline, and everyone else. Thanks for having me. So like Caroline said, I'm a product manager here at Liquibase. I have a screen off to the side over here. So if you see me looking, that's where I'm looking additionally. I've done sort of versions of this, so I will probably by default ask if people have questions and stop in the way or in the middle of my sort of talk. Feel free to put those questions in the chat at that point. Something super urgent, wave a hand and we might be able to jump in. But yeah, like Caroline said, if you put your questions in the chat, we'll certainly get to them at the end. We have plenty of time. This isn't something that's going to take a full hour. Because we're just going to talk about how to be a better collaborator with Liquibase, how to work more closely with your teammates, and especially how Hub can help you do that. So I'm going to just jump ahead to a couple of slides. I've only got a couple, and then we'll move into the more exciting stuff. So the questions we want to talk about when we go through this today is, when you're working in a team with Liquibase, how do you see the latest changes? What were those changes? Who made them? When did they make them? What failed along the way? These are questions that are pretty common. And when you work on your own with Liquibase, you're just in a dev environment or something, or a very small team, it's pretty easy, but when you need to prevent collisions in automation, when you need to know who's been doing what, that's a really important task to uncover. And having talked to lots of people, there are some ways, and none of them are that awesome. You can look through logs, your GitHub Actions or your Jenkins log or your udeploy or whatever, and try and track what's happened and who did it. You can be brave and inspect your database changelog table directly, which is not a super friendly way to do it either. You can interrupt your teammates, send them a Slack, or they happen to be in the same building as you or same room as you, see what they're doing. That's not great, especially with remote teams. We're all remote companies, so that's not a possibility for us at Liquibase. You can wait for some sort of report, or you can generate your own reports. None of these are kind of great ways to stay on top of what's going on with your Liquibase work, and especially what is going on with your teammates and colleagues who are doing things with Liquibase. So what's a better way? We think a much better way is Liquibase Hub. So if you've not heard of Hub, and we're going to do a poll here in a moment. If you've not heard of Hub, it's a free Liquibase SaaS site. It works with Liquibase Community or Liquibase Pro. It's super easy to get set up. We'll walk through those pieces. And what it does is it connects your local Liquibase usage, so things you're doing in your environments, to a centralized site that anyone in your team can see. So people who work for you, work at your same level, your bosses, all of these remote and distributed teams, this is a way to centralize that connection. One more slide, and then we're going to do a quick see if you have any questions. So one of the key features of Liquibase Hub that is very exciting, we're going to jump into all of this in detail. I'm going to show it to you in a second. I'm just sort of saying the groundwork, is Liquibase Hub pipelines. which are ways for you to connect the targets or your databases so you can see the flow of changes, not just the flow of changes that you've created, but that anybody who has access to your pipeline has created. Super handy, because obviously if Caroline made changes to the dev environment and she's in Ukraine and I'm in Austin, I won't know that unless I go look. So pipelines are a great way to do that. As it says here, it's different team members take different value out of it. Devs and DBAs can go in and track very specific changes, and folks at maybe a more overview level, release managers and DevOps folks, they can get a broader view. So that's a lot of groundwork, in a couple of minutes. Is there anybody who has an urgent question that they want to put in the chat? Something that has occurred to them right now? I want to know more about this. I want to know more about that. If so, stick it in the chat and we'll get to it. But other than that, I'm going to stop this and move over to Liquibase Hub and show you the things that I was just talking about. So Liquibase Hub, if you don't know, it's a free site. It's at hub.liquibase.com, and it connects your local work to a centralized SaaS website. What I'm going to show you here, just broadly overall, is this concept of organizations and projects. And then within that, there'll be members who do different things. But just to set the groundwork so that you know what we're talking about. I have different organizations. I'm currently signed in as Mamadio. And I have different organizations. I'm going to go over to one that has fewer projects. So I've got a list of projects over here, and we're going to talk about what these are in just a second. I'm going to jump into one called Secret SQL and show you that you have a list here of things, and I'm going to describe these in just a second, of things called operations, change logs, change sets, targets, and pipelines. So the way to think about Hub is similar to the way you might think about GitHub and your repos. So there's this concept of an organization. That might be your entire company, or it might be a team within your company. Sometimes big organizations, sometimes small organizations, big organizations will have teams of people that cannot see each other's work for various legal reasons. So there might be a consumer or customer facing team and a financial facing team and an insurance facing team or something. And so they might have totally different organizations. Other people have one organization, like you might have one overall GitHub account that has lots of repos. And you can use your projects. Let me go back to my projects. So I've got 2 projects here, and I separate the kind of work that I do into these projects. So this might be, again, something that deals with financial information. There might be another project that deals with customer information. There might be a project that deals with an app team, and another that deals with another team. So within Hub, organizations, I'm just involved in a couple right now because I didn't want to make this demo too complicated. And in this project, I've got a couple of, so within that org, I've got a couple of projects. We're going to go into the SQL one. And then within this project, I have lots of resources. So resources are the things that you use every day in Liquibase. Your operations are the commands that you run that update your database. So update, rollback SQL, update count, rollback count, changelog sync, that sort of thing. Change logs are what you would expect. Change logs are the change logs that you use in your project. The change sets are obviously the collection of all the changes that have flowed into your project. The targets are all the databases. And let's just look at one real quick. It's information about what this connection is. And when I go to a pipeline, you have pipelines, which are collections of targets. So here's normally where I would say, hey, let's talk about these in detail. This is, we're trying to save questions for the end. There are lots of resources here. The ones that we'll go a little more deeper into detail are operations and pipelines. But if you have some questions, again, as I'm going through these resources, now's a good time so you don't forget them, pop them into the chat. So let's talk about operations real quick. So an operation is a command that someone runs on Liquibase. And it could be a command that failed. So I made one intentionally that fails. It can be a command that succeeds, and it can go to, it has a change log associated with it and a target associated with it. So this is literally, let's view the details of an operation. So this was an operation, an update by a user named Luigi, who is my other user, which we'll show in a second. And there's all this information that there's just no way for me to know that my teammate has done this work if I'm not using Hub without, again, digging into their database changelog table or asking them directly. I know what target they did it to. I know the JDBC URL, when they did it, what Liquibase version they were using, their changelog. This one happens to be H2, the when. But what's also nice is this level of detail. It's like, oh, this change set. Okay, well, that's kind of the meta information. I want to know some more about it. Oh, this was that change. This was the change set. Here's the SQL that happened, and here's the log output. So this is super handy when things fail. So let's go back to one that failed. I mean, it's handy when things don't fail too, but it's very handy when things fail. And just so you know, you can't search. I can search for things that failed or passed or things that were, rollbacks, the kind of stuff that you would expect. I think I've done rollback count. Yes, some rollbacks. But let's find one that failed. Go here, find one that failed. Okay, here's a change that failed. I want to know more about this because this was also done. I'm currently signed over here in as Mario, and this one was done by Luigi, totally different person. And I could see, okay, this failed. It's got the big fail sign. All right, the change log looks fine. The change set looks fine. I'll just come down here. Oh, this table already existed. And obviously this could be any number of reasons for this failure. I did a simple one. I went in and just tweaked it up so that I knew it would fail. But this is kind of impossible to do easily if you aren't using something like Hub. So let me, hold on 1 second. Let me jump back to here. And we're going to go through in a minute. I've got a kind of a flow, and we'll talk about how to connect your local usage to Hub. First, I'm just going to sort of show you what Hub collects. Then we're going to show you how to actually connect your stuff and use it. The change logs and change sets and targets sort of happen automatically. Before we do that, there's one more thing I wanted to show you. I have, so there's a lot of operations that have happened here. That one we just saw had a lot of detail in it. So this change log, or sorry, this operation report does not have a lot of detail in it. And there's a reason for that. So you have the opportunity when you decide to connect your local usage to Hub, how much information you send. So you can send no information, in which case you wouldn't get anything, no report at all. You can send meta information, which is what we're looking at here. So it's like the meta information, like who did it, when they did it, sort of what was done, but it's not the information down to the SQL and the log level. A lot of people use this for production. People can do it however, but I'll tell you that we've learned a lot of people use this for production because they do not want, sometimes they'll be doing PII or they'll be doing personally identifiable information, like they'll be loading up data. They do not want that stored anywhere. Even though this is a secure server, and we can talk about security later, they decide on their production level environments that they don't want to send that data. Again, Hub is a great place for you to see if someone did do that. If I were to go to my targets, let's go here. If I were to go to my targets, find a production target, and view the change sets that are there, I would be able to see, oh, is this something that I expect? And then when I go into the operation report, is it the detail that I expect? Again, information that would be essentially impossible to detect with without Hub. So it's good to know what your teammates are doing.
So Mario, before we jump into the pipelines part of it, we have a couple of questions that I think would be relevant to answer in the chat right now. I know a couple from the community. Johnny was asking just generally, when was Hub released?
Hub was released 7 months ago-ish. I mean, it was kind of soft release, maybe 8 months ago. We're still building it now. So it's new. It's under a year, I'd say 6 to 8 months.
Mm-hmm. And I know Erica had some questions too. Does she need a certain version of Liquibase to be able to use Hub?
You do. It is, I should know this as product manager. I believe it is 4.1. Is that correct? It's on the website actually here. If I go here, get the latest version. Yeah, 4.1. So you need 4.1 or greater.
Okay. And then, oh, sorry. What were you going to say, Mario?
I see this question about, do projects align with a certain thing in Liquibase CLI? That's a great question. We might take that mostly for the end because it's a little more in depth. But they do align with it, again, depending on how your culture, your company culture splits things up. So they are not prescribed or limited to align with a Liquibase element, rigidly. It is how you might on your, in your system, how your directories are structured. A Liquibase project would align with sort of your root directory. If you're the kind of user who uses the master changelog with the nested changelogs, a project would include all of that nesting into the main root changelog or the master changelog. It's not required to work that way, but that is a very common and useful way for it to work.
And then just one more question, and then we can move on and we'll save questions again. But we had someone ask if Liquibase Hub is self-hosted or not.
Great question. Currently, it is a SaaS product only. We have considered, technically it runs in a AWS VPC, Amazon Web Services Virtual Private Cloud for us. And so it is certainly conceivable that it could run in someone else's AWS VPC relatively easily, but that is not a product we're selling right now. But if you are interested in that, let us know, because we kind of are always taking votes and feedback from the community on what they want to see. Okay, I see some more questions, but we'll save a little bit of those for later to get to pipelines, and then I want to do the kind of an actual demo of connecting it real quick, and then we'll have time for question and answer more time. All right, so pipelines are connections of targets. So which you may also call collections of targets. So you may also call those databases, or usually databases or environments or targets. We call them targets. So with the pipeline, you've kind of got this broad overview, which is just the sort of operation count. So I can see on the environments in my pipeline, 3 of 4 operations succeeded. 5 of 5 succeeded, 4 of 4 succeeded, 2 of 2 succeeded. So that's good. My dev has a failed operation. That's fine. My integration, UAT, and prod do not. I can drill in for a little more detail and check the change sets. So here I get a count of change sets that have been deployed to my various environments, which is very handy. Let me make this a little wider. Which is very handy for seeing if I'm up to date with where I want to be. And if I have other teammates who are adding to these environments, which is about 100% likely, I can see if these counts are where I expect them to be. So this top view is a little more on the manager DevOps view to see, are things flowing the way I expect them to be flowing? And this lower view is a little more on the dev DBA side. So what this is saying is, on this environment, this change set is here. So I can look across and say, oh, this change set is missing over here. Maybe that's good, maybe that's bad, but at least I can see what it is. If I need to go check in directly, I can just literally click on it and say, oh, this one, it's going to jump all the way down to it. Oh, this change set, these are all auto-generated from my just sort of test data. So they're like, oh yeah, that's the change set I expect to be there. That's cool. And I don't expect that to be over on my prod environment yet. I can go through here and I can view these, and for the dev and DBA, this bottom half is really quite valuable, because they say these are the changes that I expect, whether I put them there or didn't put them there. And if I see something I didn't expect, I don't expect this table here on my UAT environment, I can go find out what it is. I can see what it is. I can jump back up and say, oh, this was done by Mario. I need to go send him a Slack message or whatever, because this is not what I expected. And along those lines, I'm gonna do one real quickly and just sort of show you from a little bit more on the terminal side. So I can see right here, this my local dev environment is 150 deployed change sets, and it's missing 5. So I want to sync that up. So let me go to my terminal, and conveniently, I'll run Liquibase status real quick. I see that, oh, I do have a change log set up to run to that environment, because this is a demo. I was a little prepared. And so, okay, I want to make sure that this deployment gets recorded at Liquibase Hub. How do I do that? So let me jump over to my change log real quick. And this is just a real simple 5 change set change log. You'll notice there's nothing here called change log ID. So the way Liquibase connects to Liquibase local connects to Hub is through registering your change log. So we literally have a command just called register changelog. And what this will do, we can do it in two ways. I'm going to show you two ways. You can do it interactively. So I have a Hub API key in my properties file. I'm going to show you that real quick. Where's my properties? Hey, there's my properties file. Well, yeah, that one. So I have a Hub API key, which is available to me from the website. So I'm actually signed in as Luigi. So let me go to my Luigi. And over here, I have API keys. When I joined Hub, I got an API key. And when I joined another organization, I got a different API key. So I made sure to use the API key that connects me to the organization I want to record this data. So that's not terribly difficult to do. I just literally put Hub API key into my properties file. And then I go back to my terminal. And so when it did that, it said, oh, well, you have a couple of projects. Which project do you want to register it to? I actually don't want to register. I would have done secret SQL, but I want to do this in another way. I want to do the same thing, but I want to do it in automation. So when I go to projects and I go to secret SQL, I've got a project ID here. I can go here and copy this project ID. And so if I were doing this in automation where I wasn't going to type, then luckily I've already typed this in somewhere back here. I won't have to retype it. Oh, yeah, maybe I will retype it. I'm going to do Liquibase register changelog, and I'm going to add Hub project ID and the project ID that I just copied. And this is something that obviously I could set up with my own scripts. I could set this up using environment variables in my build job. I could do lots of things to do this in automation. So when I've done that, it's going to say, okay, now I've registered this changelog to that thing. I'm just going to do a good old-fashioned Liquibase update. Whoops, I'm going to try and spell things correctly. People are watching you type. So, oops, this person. So I'm going to jump over here real quick. And even before that's finished, if I hit refresh, I'm going to see a new Liquibase. Well, I guess it already finished. So this was the update I just did at 1:23 p.m. So now this is available for anybody in the world. So this is me on my Luigi account, because I'm the one who just did it. So let's go over here to the Mario account, pretend I'm a totally different country. I come over to my operations, and I will see the same thing. And as importantly, when I go to pipelines, and I check the change sets, as they load in, I will now see that these are synced up. This is 155. And one more tidbit, just because it's interesting, if you didn't notice or not, it actually gave me the link to go check out the report. So I didn't actually have to go browse for it. I could just go check the report. Yeah, so I'm going to stop there because there's more to talk about in detail, but I just want to give you a couple of examples by checking operations, by checking pipelines, by making sure to change your API key. You know what? Instead of me telling them to you, I'm going to show them to you. Some of the things that we covered, and then we could get into the questions. In order to collaborate better, you want to think about how you set up your orgs and your projects and your naming conventions, because that's always an issue. But there's a couple of different models, and we can talk about that in detail. I forgot, did I show you how to join an organization? Did I do that, Erica?
I don't think so.
Okay, let me do that real quick. Joining an organization is super simple. I've got some, let me go to an organization. I can literally invite somebody. I pop in their email address here. They will get an email that has a code that says, hey, click join, and then they go pop that code in there. So one-time code, good for one person only, and makes it super simple. And in that way, they get all of these organizations that they can go. So it's super easy to invite your teammates. The only slightly difficult thing is to remember to swap your API key so that you're working on the right organization, especially if you're involved in multiple organizations. You can copy your IDs so you can use them in automation. I showed you the project ID, but there's other IDs that you can copy depending on the kinds of things you want to do. I'm not going to cover all of it here. And there are other things, but I don't want to inundate you. That's a straight 20 minutes with a few questions. So let's call it there and see what kind of questions we have.
Perfect. Yeah, there are some in the chat, Mario, if you want to take a look. Johnny had a follow-up question immediately afterwards. If you are able to see it, I can read it.
Yes, about the verbosity and the SQL change type. So if you set your hub mode to all, it will provide this level of data that I was showing. Let me go to, oops, that's tapped open. It will provide, this level of data regardless of your change type. So JSON, YML, XML, or SQL change type. If you have your hub mode set to all, which is the default, then you will get this level of data. Is there a limit to how many targets can be used overall or per project? There is not. There will be. So we're not charging for this system at all right now, but we have been floating around different ideas for thresholds at which we would start charging people. We have people who run, they have multi-tenant scenarios. They have like a kind of a golden master and 50, or it's actually 55 database changes that they run. So they have 55 targets. So they have an automated job that they run pretty often, and it goes to 55, and then they pipeline it up however they want. I can't actually see how they do it. I only know from our stats that they have 55 connections. I haven't seen because I can't see their data. So there's not a technical limit. There might eventually be a threshold or payment limit, but there isn't right now. And then Johnny Rock asks again, how difficult is it to configure Hub for an ongoing project? Excellent question. So changelog sync is, if you know changelog sync, you can think of Hub as having a local version of the database changelog table compared to your local DBCL. Changelog sync, just like you would do when you start using Liquibase on a new project, if you do a one change update or changelog sync, it will grab all of your DBCL and put it into Hub. So if anybody anywhere has started using Liquibase already and you decide to move to Hub, that's all you got to do. And then it will carry that information over. And I see I use Liquibase for Oracle and Postgres. Can I use Liquibase for HBase, Tool, and other DBs? Hub is, so this is a Liquibase question. Yeah, so Liquibase has a kind of two tiers of support. There's the 5, maybe it's 6 at this point. Erica, you might be able to jump in. Oracle, Postgres, SQL Server, MySQL, MariaDB, Cockroach, I think are our main supported databases. But there are about 30 others that it works with. It's on our website. I don't know if Caroline or Erica want to throw that into the Slack or into the chat, the page. I don't have it offhand. I don't know if I would say Tantrum Tool, I don't know offhand, so I'm going to say maybe not. But there are lots and lots of databases that are supported, lots.
Yeah, the rule generally is like, it's usually shocking when it doesn't work. It's more like what doesn't work with Liquibase, and then there are some little, different things that don't line up exactly. And so community works with most things. But as far as, certain advanced features and then like certifying that it supports those features is the trick. And we're actually working on figuring that out and giving people a better idea. It's just that Liquibase was pretty powerful for so many of them. And then we have this really awesome test harness that we're using to validate all of those commands and everything else for each of those databases. So that's a work in progress.
Yeah. And it's a good reminder, Liquibase is open source. So there are lots of extensions written by folks who are individual contributors as well as whole other companies. So sometimes a whole company will approach and say, hey, I want to use Liquibase with Cockroach DB, or somebody. How do we make it work together? And then an extension will arise out of that, which will be free. And because it's open source, people can fork them often and tweak it up for their own personal use. So we're always open to extension help for sure. That's a good way to get involved if you're a developer of that sort. Before we get lost in questions, I want to mention two things that are upcoming that I think will also improve the collaboration, kind of for a slightly different cohort of user. So we're working on a system called quality checks. And this is aimed at helping run in an automated fashion the kinds of rules that DBAs often do. So you can think of a rule like all foreign keys must begin with FK. All indexes must begin with ID or end with ID or whatever your system has. This is the length of an index, integer, those sorts of rules. So we are building a system that will, and it should be coming out at the end of this quarter, so in the next 5-ish weeks. So you'll be able to automatically run these quality checks on your change logs when you check them into source code. Or if you don't check them into source code, which you should be doing, but if you don't, whenever you're ready with your change log. It is similar to our super high-end product, but it's also going to be free to use in certain capacities. Another item that we're working on are metrics reports. So these are also coming out in 4 to 6 weeks. Right now, if you click metrics, it'll tell you it's coming soon. But what you'll get is across your pipeline, you'll get the kind of 4 key DORA metrics, very slightly tweaked for our use, but they're DevOps metrics. How long it takes for changes to flow, what's the change failure rate, how often are you deploying? This is helpful for collaboration, really more if you're like the manager sort. So if you need to see how your pipeline is performing or how your DevOps are performing, viewing these metrics would be a great way to do that. And then like with all things here, you'll be able to dive deeper and deeper for those who need to get into the details. Okay, I see maybe some more things in the chat. Oh, that's the.
Those are just the links. Yeah, does anyone have any more questions? And feel free, you don't even have to put it in the chat if you want to speak to it. You're more than welcome to do that as well, if that's easier.
Or if there's something else you want to see,
yeah,
we can make Mario demonstrate some things on the spot.
Yeah, I'm happy to go try things out or show you other pieces. It's a lot. I've learned not to inundate. There's a lot of power there. It's better with 2+ people. Or if you have some best practices that you've done, if you found a way with or without Hub to stay on top of what your teammates are doing, shout it out or throw it in the chat. Anyone? So I'm gonna call on somebody.
No.
I was calling my two teammates.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
I think I have a question. So I have one big project with a lot of microservices inside. It's like 9 or 10 microservices, and each one has 1 DB change sets. So I have 10 projects with 10 DB change sets for the Liquibase. What do you think it's the best for this project? Should I create 1 big project or 1 project for which ones?
So good question, very common question. And so I'm going to have to ask you a follow-up question. What is the size of the team working across those 10? And then the follow-up to that is there any reason for them to not be able to see each other's work? Like, is 1 person work on all 10, or do you have 10 teams working on 10 projects?
Yeah, we have 1 team, 1 big team with I think we have about 10 guys working on it, and we can access all the projects. So
okay.
It's a big mess for me. It's a big mess. Sometimes I get lost inside of these projects, and I'm searching for some solution for this.
Yeah, good question. So I would say if all the people can see everybody's work, then you just want 1 organization. That's the easiest way to do it. Invite the 10 people to your organization. You might want 10 projects, you might not. You need to get a little bit into the detail about how they share code. If they share change logs, you can still put them in 1 or not, depending on how you want to dig deeper. So if, let's say there's two of those projects kind of are like brother and sister to each other. And this other project over here is a distant cousin. There's no shared change log. They don't have a master change log with nested change logs. But I would definitely put those in separate projects. But if they're sharing a lot of the data, then I would put that in one project, because then you can split it at the deeper level of pipeline. So if you have different environments, you can go the deeper level of the pipeline. And that is why this is tip number one, is thinking about how you split these apart. Yeah, does that help?
Yeah. Thanks a lot, man.
Yeah. Very common question. It really is. There's I don't remember who said it, but the hardest parts of software are something and naming schemes. I forgot the first part is. It's like the hardest part is build it by and naming schemes. All right. Anyone else? I won't call on names. It's tempting.
Hi, Mario. I have a question.
Yes.
You mentioned security earlier. Could you kind of talk a little bit more about that? Just being a SaaS thing, and obviously, potential for customer data to be in databases.
Yeah.
What's the security?
Okay, so there's kind of two dimensions I'll talk about. One, I'll just kind of recap because we talked about it a bit. It's up to you. Even if you use Hub, you can send all the data, which we've looked at, the metadata, which is just that sort of top level, or no data. So you can still be using Hub, and then at a project level or environment level, using environment variables, set the Hub mode to not even send data. The data itself is encrypted in transit. It's encrypted in storage at rest. It's a Postgres system that uses row-level security, and we are SOC 2 compliant. So we've gone through, if you know, I forgot what the SOC stands for, but it's the security compliance organization. So it's a SOC 2 compliant site that's also protected behind the AWS VPC, firewalls. So, that's the brief version. Does that help? Do you want more kind of detail?
No, that should be fine. Thanks.
Yeah, okay.
That's good.
Yeah. Pretty common question as well about SaaS and, can I get it on-prem?
Yeah. No, that's I'm a developer, but we have DevOps guys, and I know our DevOps manager, that's the sort of question he'll definitely ask.
Rightfully so, yes.
Yeah, he'll be like, well, I asked that question, and yeah. All right, anyone else have some questions? We got time. We don't have to stay the whole hour if people don't have questions, but if anyone has issues, questions, things they want to see. Okay, then I'm just going to go back to this page for a second, just to sort of reiterate these and tell you the one that causes the most trouble, surprisingly, is that people who are in different orgs forget to swap their keys. The key is your connection to the org. So you swap it in your properties file or an environment variable if you're using it that way. Sometimes people, if they're working in big groups across orgs, will forget that, and they'll be like, why is my stuff not working? I did all these things and it didn't show up. And it almost is always that one. Other than that, yeah, just give it a shot. It's free. And as always, let us know what you think. Let me jump down to the ways to get in touch with us. Discord.
So under the covers, it's basically reading the change log and then comparing that with the database's changelog table?
Yeah, it's exactly a little bit of both of that. It is essentially mirroring the database changelog table to the Hub website, kind of splitting it up in different ways so that we can do different kinds of slices on the data, and then copying the meta information of the changelog. We don't make a literal copy of your changelog. We sort of copy the meta information as gathered from when you run the operation.
So it does a pull on the targets, the databases, sort of.
Yeah, it's not exactly that, because it actually comes in the middle while core is doing its job. So when you use the CLI, as CLI does its work, it sends it. So it sends it to your database connection, your JDBC URL, but then it also sends, depending on your setting, that same information to Hub. So it doesn't
Okay.
actually look into your database, pull it out and copy it over. It's its core is doing the work. It basically does it in two directions at the same time.
Oh, okay. So it's an ongoing. So if you were already if you were already in flight and you had an existing change log and you'd sent some changes to your database and all of a sudden started to use Hub, it wouldn't exactly know what has reached the database.
Well, at the end
that
of the
point.
first command, it does a command called hub sync, which is kind of the
Right.
equivalent of changelog sync, and it would sync it up then.
Oh, okay.
If we were to run a really long change set, like 1,000 changes, we would see, and we were to click into this while it was running, we would see some of these having a pending. So because it knows what it's going to do, because the way core works, it says, oh, I'm going to do 1,000 change sets and they're called blah, blah, blah. And it sends that. And then each time it's successful or fail, it sends it over to Hub. So you would see this in progress, if you had a very big change set or a very big change log. This one was 100 changes.
Thanks.
Yeah.
While you're here, Mario, can you show people how to give feedback? Since this is such a new thing and we're trying to improve it, what's super valuable is getting people to tell us when there's something wrong or something that could be more helpful or useful.
Yeah, so there's a feedback button on every page, literally, and it says this, and it makes an automatic ticket in our Jira system. So if I were to say, I wish I could sort by username. Oops. Wish I could sort by username, and I draw a little, around these filters. Why is there not a sort? Please add username. And then when you hit send, it will create a Jira ticket and it'll go into our flow. And you could do that on anything. You could do that because you think something in this version is not up to date. You could be like, oh, there's a typo here, and you should really say something else. Or if you have an idea, if you literally have an idea that says, oh, I wish I could, I'll give you an idea that's happened many times, but if you say, oh, when I'm looking at this operation, let me just pick one, look at an operation, and I see that it failed, I wish I could click into it, change it to varchar 255 and resubmit it. I'll let you know that on our roadmap is role-based access control for being operational from Hub. So you could actually make operations happen from Hub as opposed to going back to your CLI. But if you have ideas like that, hit this feedback button and let us know. It literally is automatically in our ticket queue after that.
Okay, does anyone have any last questions?
Okay, well, I hope you found it handy. As always, here's the places, and I always like to leave with how to get in contact. Here's the places to get in contact. You can reach us on Twitter. That's actually a pretty decent way to do it. Discord is another very good way to do it. We check all of these. Any words, Caroline or Erica?
That is all. I just wanted to say thank you so much, everyone that joined us today. And like Mario said, feel free to get in touch with us. We are always on Discord too. I know a lot of y'all are on Discord. I talked to y'all, some of y'all a lot on Discord. But as always, like I said, reach out if you have feedback, questions, and we'll keep y'all posted when we do another tech talk. If you have an idea for a tech talk, we'd love to hear it. And then, hey, maybe we'll see you at the next roundtable too if y'all have more questions. We'll schedule it for September. So thank you, everybody. Thanks, Mario.
Thanks, y'all.
All right, thank you all.
All right, y'all take care.
Bye.
Bye.